This is a video I put together featuring some of my students. Thanks to distance learning, I had the time to edit their individual videos into this final version. Today, I will show you my process using two Apple packages included in OS X, GarageBand and iMovie. The first step in making any one of these videos is to make sure that the students have their music learned. So you want to assign something that they can learn quickly or that they already know. In doing so, I chose our Southview School song, which I posted on my website that students have been using for distance learning, along with the lyrics. I embedded the accompaniment track with the lyrics so that they could listen to the song without my words on it. So that was if they wanted to use it with no words. The video shows the motions, but also has the words included. So if they wanted to sing along with that, they would have it, but my voice would also be in the background. So I advise the students to turn down the volume if they use this. Using headphones is always a good idea. That would be the best thing, headphones or earbuds, especially if you're making a virtual choir, like a legitimate virtual choir. If you're just doing a fun video, that part's not as important. So this is how I distributed the music and asked my students to practice and record it. Once they had recorded themselves on video, they could load their responses on Seesaw. My younger students, K through 3, are able to check activities through Seesaw, through their classroom teachers, and they're also able to post responses and videos. And here's an example of a classroom where that happened. Any one of these pictures shows the students who sent a video back to me, and this boy appears in the video a couple of times. So I'm just going to skip ahead in his video and show you what he did. Now you can hear other sounds in the background that maybe we don't need, such as his mother giving him an instruction. Maybe the singing is good, maybe the singing is not good, but his picture was really great, so I wanted to use him in the video quite a bit. That is how I assign the music, and Seesaw is how I receive the videos back. In order to get those videos, all I had to do was download them. So here on my computer, if I've got his video open, I can just control click or right click and save as. So in the middle of playing, I could just save video as, and it would ask me where I wanted to put this. Now each file is going to have a different crazy random name, so I typically like to name them after the student and then just save it on my desktop at first. But I made a dedicated folder of Southview song videos, and these are all the different kids that I had. And notice this is saving as an MPEG-4 movie. That is a movie type that seems to work very well with iMovie. So all of them saved in the same format that I was using. Once I collected all the videos I needed, then I could import them into iMovie. So let's take a look at my desktop folder here. Every one of these MP4s is a student's video, but I didn't necessarily want all of their songs, all of their audio. I just wanted to take the ones that I thought worked the best. So I made a separate folder for audio tracks. Here we've got the students who made an audio recording, and I just took each one of these videos and stripped the audio off of it. How do I do that? Well, let's take a look here. If I go to, let's say, this first one, and I open it up in QuickTime. Up here in File, there's an option to export as audio only. When I click there, it will take the name of this file, but it will save this only with the audio track. The picture is gone, and I can save it wherever I like. I made the dedicated audio folder here, and here we are. So File, Export As, Audio Only gives you just the voice track to save as an M4A, which is also something that iMovie can handle, but GarageBand likes quite a lot, because that's actually our first stop after we have collected all these videos and separated the audio tracks. So that is the next component, is to put all the sounds together. So how do we put all those sounds together? Well, I like to use the application GarageBand. That's this little guy, the speaker and the guitar. And you can see from my GarageBand that I've got lots of tracks of different audio recordings that I have imported and used and put together. How did we get here? I'll show you in just a minute. First, I want to play and make sure this is working. Okay, that's pretty loud. But we get the sound that we need to hear. This first track is the accompaniment track. That's got no vocals on it at all. And then everything else is a voice track that I have imported. Notice these sliders over here are all at 0, but as we get into the song, they move. They do that through automation. If you go up to Mix and Show Automation, or hit the A key, you'll get this little guy, which shows you all these different things you can do to change the automation layers. Now, what does that mean? Well, volume is one, reverb is another. You can also do things like pan left and right, change the echo, lots of different things that you can do. Volume is mostly what you would need. And the reason for this is because without this automation to gradually fade in, there's kind of a sudden abrupt pop when each track comes in. A lot of the tracks have some sort of background audio, just because the kids are in their homes, probably, not in a controlled studio setting. And so there might be some ambient noise that is very sudden when that track comes into play. So fading in kind of helps relieve some of that pop and makes it a more gradual process. You can play around with that on your own, but I guess I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. Let's take a look at how this all got put together. I am not going to put the whole thing together again. This took me a few hours, and I don't want to do that here, but I will do maybe 3 tracks just so you see what's going on. I'm going to close this and start a new one. I'll start with an empty project, and it asks me what type of track. I'm going to choose audio, and it's going to create this layout. Here we've got the library, here we've got the smart controls. We really don't need either of those for this, so I'm going to turn them off by clicking these little buttons here. Now I'm left with just my workspace and my track list. This track is built for audio, but as I import these files, it's going to automatically kind of create that for me, so I don't have to define every single track. I'm going to open my Southview Song videos and go into Audio Tracks. And let's start with the accompaniment first. We do need to start there because everything else is being synchronized to that. So I'm going to drag this over to the beginning of this first track and let it go. It imports all the audio, which we can see in this waveform right here. And if I play it back, I should be able to hear it. Oh, that's my metronome. Let's turn that off. And the counting. Okay, so we've got this ready to go right at the beginning. If it's not right at the beginning when it first gets imported, you can change it, you can slide it over, just grab and drag. Now, we need to bring in an audio track and synchronize it with this. So I'm going to choose this girl here. Ella did a very nice job. I'm just going to import over here and then drag this back so I can see a little better. Now, her waveform is not necessarily aligned with this one. This takes a little trial and error. I'm going to look at the mute and the solo functions for this. Soloing means that her track is highlighted and everything else is faded out and I don't hear it. So now we just get Ella. Okay, now Ella's performance starts about here. Everything else before that is stuff we don't really need. So I'm going to back up my playhead here a little bit before her first south view, maybe to about here, and then making sure that her track is highlighted. I'm going to hit Command T. That splits my track into two different tracks now. They're continuous, but they're separate. And now I can get rid of the unwanted portion by highlighting it and pressing delete. Boom, gone. Now it starts right where I want it to. Okay, I got a little bit of lead time, but not too much. And that's good. Well, I want a little bit for that automation that I was talking about earlier to fade in. Let's see if we can line it up with this upper track. So I need to figure out where the south view starts here. Right there. That's the beginning of our song. And this is the south view, those two claps on the waveform peaks here. So I'm going to drag hers over so it lines up with that sound as close as I can manage from this distance. Let's see what happens if we play this. Oh, I forgot to unmute or unsolo. Sorry. Let's try this again. Close. Hers is just a little bit behind this track, so it will help if I zoom in a little bit with this zoom slider over here. I need to make this fit just a little bit better, so I'm going to scoot it over so it happens a little bit sooner. Now her voice lines up with the original track really well, so I'm pretty satisfied with where that's placed. It may take some trial and error, it may take some definite fine-tuning, but that zoom slider will help you go closer and really, really fine-tune where you want that to sit. You might also consider changing from the measure and beat to a time. Knowing which second you're dealing with sometimes helps more than knowing which beat you're on, because what you import may not fit the metronome that this program is using. So the time might function better. That's neither here nor there right now. Just wanted you to know that. Let's import another track. I'm going to go over here and drag out of the way, and we'll bring in the Omars, a couple of kids who sang together, brother and sister. Did a very nice job with their visual performance, but I wasn't as crazy about their audio. Here's my soloing for them. And you see what I mean. A little too loud for me to want to use this in a real setting, but for our purposes here, I'll go ahead and use it. Now I need to line up their south view, which happens almost immediately, with the ones above it. I'm way too far out. I need to zoom in. So I'm going to zoom in on that. The zoom always happens where the playhead is. So wherever this is, that's where you're getting the closest. I'm going to slide over here and get to the beginning. So here's their south view, and here's the next girl's south view right there. Okay, so let's see if we can make that a little bit closer together. Maybe that'll work. Let's find out. We'll highlight these two. Pretty good. I think I want to move this back just a little bit because it sounds like maybe they were a little slow on the first one, but then they caught up. So I'm going to try again. So now they're lined up pretty well. I'm going to zoom back out. I'm going to unsolo these, and let's listen to it from the beginning again. Pretty good. Now, it's kind of hard to distinguish where these voice tracks are, so that's why we change the volume for the balance. This right now is very loud. We're going to want to turn that down. This is probably something I want to make stronger, and I would definitely want to fade them back. In truth, I don't think I used their track at all when I was making my original video, but in this case, I would want to downplay their performance. So let's give a listen to this balance. So you can fine tune, you can play with these sliders and see what works best. There is a maximum setting, of course, but hers is set at 4 right now. The Omar's I've got way down at negative 3.9, and the accompaniment track is fairly quiet too. The more tracks you layer, the more the ambient sound will kind of reinforce each other. So those kids who have used my original video to sort of copy are going to have that sound in the background of their own recording, and that kind of multiplies. So you have to play around with these settings to make sure that it's not too much. You don't want it to bleed over too much, and that will kind of guide you here as well. Now, the automation that we talked about earlier, if I hit A, brings it back. How do I adjust that here? There's a really strong pop right at the start of this. I don't want to have that. I'm going to click on this, and this yellow line appears. The yellow line is set to 4 decibels, just like I said on the slider over here. That's great. I want her to be at 4 decibels when she begins. But I also want to fade into that. So there might be just a couple seconds of time here, and I don't need another dot. I can just start from here, and then it'll zoom up. But on the other hand, I might need to change like this, where it comes in at a fairly low level, but then it keeps on going right before she sings. Let's see what this sounds like if we solo her track. Not bad, not bad. What if I slide this part over so that the pop at the very beginning is very, very quiet, and then we quickly ramp up to where she enters. That's a much more acceptable sound. We don't hear the pop at all anymore. So we started at nothing, and then as soon as her track enters, we ramp up the volume just in time for her first entrance. So we can do the same thing at the end. Can add another dot down here if I can get on the line. Hello. Don't know why it won't let me get there. Oh, that's frustrating. Anyway, the point being, somewhere over here. Finally, I get one. So maybe at the very end, I want to fade her out the same way. And I don't want to have her talking at the end or extra sounds. It just quietly fades away to the end of the track. Okay, that's something to look at. So I'm going to hide my automation, but it's still taking effect. Notice it's at 0 at the start. And then as soon as it gets here, that slider moves with my automation. Not bad. A little trial and error. Definitely take some time and patience, and you will have stacks and stacks of these audio tracks to play around with and synchronize. Now, once it's all set, all balanced, everything's good to go. By the way, I should mention you can pan left and right if you want to make what sounds like an actual choir and have kids, in different points in space on the track. That's up to you. I did that. You don't have to do that, but panning is another option for your video. Now, when it's all complete, you are set to go. Go to Share and down to Export Song to Disk. Okay, when you export the song to disk, it's going to ask you what you want to call it and then where you want to save it. I'm just going to call this audio for tutorial, and I'm going to save it on the desktop, and I'm going to save it as an AIFF. That's a high quality file. AAC is good. I think this one is better, and iMovie likes it a lot. So if you choose this one, you're probably going to do great. Then hit export. It will scan through the entire thing, and it will write your new song straight to your desktop or to whatever folder you designate. And here it is, audio for tutorial.aif. It's ready to go and be loaded into iMovie, which is the next phase. This part is where we take all the video and the audio and put it all together. I should say up front that the app I like to use for this is iMovie because it comes with a Mac. It's free. It's part of the package. It's very versatile, but it is not as powerful as professional packages. You can only add one new layer of video per editing pass, and having multiple images at once requires multiple passes. So if you have 20 images on the screen at some point, you're going to need 20 passes to make that happen. It's a bit of a drag and it takes a while, but it is free. Another alternative, for example, is Final Cut Pro, but as you can see, it is $300 for some extra power. And if you don't intend to do some high-powered video editing a lot, I don't think it's worth the money. So that's an option, and you could do it right away. It would probably let you do all your videos at one pass, but it's going to cost you quite a bit. So let's look at the free version, the iMovie. Here is my iMovie opening screen. I got my projects here. I got a media tab here, and these are projects that I have made in iMovie on this computer before. Create new will let me create a brand new movie, so I will click that and choose movie, not trailer. I've never done trailer, in fact, but I've done a few movies. So which library would I like to create this project in? I guess the iMovie library, maybe. Okay. Now I have a tutorial library set up here, and here we go. So this one is blank, and yours will probably start looking this way too. So we have your media library here. We have your playback screen here, playback, which shows you what it's going to look like in the finished product. And down here it says drag and drop video clips and photos from the browser above to start creating your movie. So the video clip goes in the center of this. Then you see this tiny music note down here. Audio goes down below. And then any secondary video or titles you have are going to go above here. That's your new layer of video. But since we don't have a primary, we're going to have to start with that. In fact, we're going to start before that. Remember when I mentioned the AIF file? Well, if I wanted to use this video, or this audio, for the new video, I would drag this over here, and iMovie will put it in the proper space. Drag it all the way back to the start, because that's going to be the beginning of my video. Now, if I wanted to have some sort of opening titles, I would have something before the audio starts. But in this case, just for this moment right now, we're going to assume that the video starts right away. Right now, there's not a lot of sound. Certainly nothing to look at. Okay, so that is the recording that I made with those few voices and the background accompaniment. There is no video chosen, so right now the window is showing all black. Other choices here are audio, titles, backgrounds, and transitions. I strongly recommend that if you are doing a full project, the first thing you do is import all your video files that you want to use into this section right here. In fact, let's do that right now. The way I did it was to open my videos folder and then select all the files that I wanted with a shift click at the bottom. I'm going to take out Command click the folders that don't have any point being here. But everything else is an MP4 or this movie file that I made myself. So I'm going to drag these over into my media library, and iMovie collects them all. So these are all things that are now ready to use down in the workspace. Some of them look a little odd. The way this was imported, it's not in the right orientation. It's flipped on its side. So I would need to correct that. How would I correct that? Well, I'm going to choose just this one clip. And I'm going to come up here to this crop, and notice over here there's a way to flip it counterclockwise or clockwise, which is what I want. And now it has turned the entire clip 90 degrees clockwise. Click the check and it's stored permanently like that. Alright, so the rest of these clips look like they are oriented correctly, and we're good to go. This one has a special little feature here because of this bright panel here. I think that was a little bit of a problem, and it turns out that this video has something weird inside it where there's like a slow motion section. I couldn't use this clip at all. What if I wanted to remove something from the library? Well, now I could control click or right click and delete media from event, and it will take out that clip permanently. I could reinstall it later if I needed to, but the rest of these are perfectly acceptable. Okay. Oh, sorry, orientation alert. So let's turn this one again by going to crop and rotate clockwise and check. And now those girls are set. All right. So we had this sample video or audio down here, but that's not actually the one that I would use for real. The one I used for real was my final version in this folder, my audio tracks. It's down here at Southview Song audio.aif. So I'm going to put that in here, and this gives me the total length of my song with the final edit, the mix, the balance, everything. And again, I'm backing it up at the beginning here because that's where my video would start. My video started with a title screen, and I had changing background colors here. So let's take a look at backgrounds real quick. There are maps, there are some dynamic things. These blobs move, the underwater thing has the lights going there. But then there are other sort of static things to use. I used these colorful ones here down at the bottom. This is entirely up to you, but often there are sections between the video clips here, sort of negative space, if you will, and it's interesting to have a different color back there. So if you want to do that, that's an option. I'm not going to bother with that right now, but that is something you could drag down, and that makes for 4 seconds of green. And as soon as that 4 seconds is over, the green goes away. See? This shows you exactly what the screen will show. And so I'm going to take that out with a delete. I still have my audio down here. What if I wanted a title? There's a lot of different title themes here. Some are more fanciful than others. Here's a Star Wars kind of thing. This one blows in on pixie dust. You can see as we track across, it kind of leaves its I'm trying to remember her name. Tinkerbell. Tinkerbell fairy dust behind. This one has sort of a disco effect. So you can play with any of these, you can use any of these, but if you're choosing a title, you want to drag it down and then type in over here whatever it is you want. This T is for your title, for your text. So let's just type tutorial. I'm going to click this check mark here, but you can make several changes up here with the alignment, with the font style, with the color. You can change the size of it. It has an automatic feature on this one that will rescale if you type too much. Tutorial that had too long title. Okay, so it keeps adjusting as you go. So I'm going to just get rid of that stuff. We didn't want it anyway. And check. So now, at the beginning of my video, I've got a title screen with the first few seconds of audio. What if I wanted more than that? Well, I could just stretch this, drag and hold, and it'll continue that same title over the sound, slowing the pace of its dynamics. So that's an option. Now, let's talk about our primary layer of video here. I'm going to go to my media, and I'm going to choose some random kid. Let's try her. Okay, we're starting with this girl who had a pretty fun performance, and kind of like I did in GarageBand, I want to do a little scan here to figure out where her performance really begins. So she claps for the first time here. I'm going to give myself a little lead time, and her track is highlighted in yellow. Here in iMovie, splitting the track uses a different command than in GarageBand. In iMovie, you need to use Command B to split the track. Now I have two separate tracks. They are continuous, like in GarageBand. The audio produces no stutter. So that was a very clean effect, but I'm going to get rid of this part of it because that's my unwanted section. So delete. And now I've got just her performance. I have to line that up though. So obviously her performance is way ahead of the rest of the kids on the audio track. So I need to slide this over, and I can't. Oh no. It won't let me do dead space. So you're going to have to put something in here. Either stretch the title, right? Okay, I went too far, didn't I? So back it up. Ooh, getting closer. How can I zoom in here? Well, right now I'm using my fingers on my trackpad to spread left and right, two fingers, to zoom in, or pinch together to zoom out. This is your zoom slider for iMovie. And again, like GarageBand, it follows the playhead. Wherever you are on the playhead, that is your zoom point. So we're going to zoom in really close here so we can get a good look at this waveform. Where is her first clap? Okay, I want this, we can see where she claps, to be over here. So I still need a little bit more title time here. Let's play around with this. Did I hit it right or is it wrong? Well, it's a little bit off, but getting closer. Let's drag. Try again. I don't know. Let's try again. Oh, nope, wrong way. So this does take some trial and error. You'll have to play with it a bit. Close. Did I go too far? Yes, I did. So, like I said, that's acceptable. Especially if you've got multiple video windows on the screen, that might not be terribly noticeable. Now, of course, you'll fine-tune it to whatever your level of satisfaction is, but this lines up pretty well with the voices of the chorus, and that's the point. Now, what if we wanted a second video? Okay, and for the purposes of this tutorial, that's exactly the point. We want a second kid to be on top of there to have another shot. So I'm going to put in this secondary layer. Like I said earlier, iMovie can handle one new layer of video at a time. The primary is not the new one. this secondary is the new one. So in this initial pass, we could do 2 at one time. But the default for this is a cutaway, where the new video just completely covers up the old. Now, because the shape of her video is different from the first one, it's not exactly covering everything. It's just kind of obscuring this middle part. I would want to do something else anyway. When we left off last, we were talking about cutaway, which puts the secondary image in front of the first. Okay. There are other options though. You could do the green and blue screen, which is great if you do have a green screen or a blue screen behind you. You can put just the image of the person in front of something else. You can superimpose them, sort of like a meteorologist in front of a weather map. But we don't have any of that here, so that doesn't really help. We can use split screen, which puts them side by side, and we can decide to put this one on the right, or this one on the left, or top or bottom. You have to decide what you like best. And then there's a slide function here, where you can have them kind of slide into view at a certain rate. And of course, this is the number of seconds it takes for that to happen. I have not used this one, but it looks kind of fun. I use the picture-in-picture almost solely. And the reason I like this is because you can resize and you can also reposition anywhere you want. These guidelines show up to show you where middles are and centers. Great for helping that way, but I can change the location and the size to my heart's content. And for this kind of video, that's really, really helpful. So, other ways, other things to think about here with picture-in-picture. Here's a dissolve feature. This means that she fades into view and she fades back out at the end. Or we could try a zoom where she kind of pops up from one place and zips into the full box. And when the time is up, she zips away. So that's zoom. And swap means that we're swapping images here. So here's the primary, and when the secondary comes in, they trade places. So you can swap them, you can zoom, you can dissolve. I used zoom most, but each has a timer, and you can make this longer if you want to take a slow zoom, or you can make it very short. A lot of my zooms were 0.2 seconds, and sometimes I went with 0 just because I wanted the second image to pop in instantly from one frame to the next. So you can decide for yourself how long a delay you want, whether you want to have these different features. You can also decide on a border, thin or a thick border. You can change the color of the border. I didn't use any borders myself, but I'm not opposed to them. You can decide on a shadow. See, there's like a 3D shadow back there. And once you've got these settings the way you like them, hit the check mark and it will save those for this clip. Now, before we can send this out, there's one more step. Do you see in the blue sections, there's still audio in there? Well, this audio probably lines up with what's down here, although I will admit I did not line up our secondary video at all. I just brought it in here for these purposes. But even so, this is what we wanted to use in the first place. We went to the hassle of putting this together in GarageBand, so we are going to use this soundtrack only, and we're going to mute these video tracks up here. So we're going to go up to this right here, the little speaker, and we're going to tell it to mute. Okay, now you can see underneath her pictures, there is nothing in the blue. Okay, it's blank. We've turned off that sound. Let's do the same for this one. We're going to go to the volume. We're going to mute it. Oh, hello. There. So all of her volume is down too. We have nothing on the video tracks. All we're using for sound is this down here, which is our original edit. Okay, we can close that. And now these two are ready to go. I'm going to go up to this little share box here and click it. You could go over to File and then Share and then go to the one you want. Nothing wrong with that, but they have this share button ready for you, so I'm going to click on that. Several choices. We're going to choose File. When we do, it's going to bring up the name of the project, and then a few choices here. We do want video and audio. We want this resolution. If it offers you more, you're certainly welcome to try that. I wouldn't go less than 720 if I had my preference. 540 is a bit grainy for something like this, so 720 is probably the minimum. For quality, the more quality you choose, the more space you need on your computer. Notice this is 154.8 megabytes for high resolution, and if I click Best, we jump to 1.88 gigabytes. That is more than 10 times as much. You're really eating a lot of computer disk space there. That's totally up to you. It depends on how much space you have. But when you're doing pass after pass after pass, these kinds of things add up. So you might consider that. I like to use better quality for the compression rather than the faster. It doesn't matter to me if it takes a little longer to put it together. I want the best quality I can get, and it doesn't change the space at all. So now I'm going to hit Next, and it asks where I want to put it. I think for this, I'm going to put it into my desktop, just for ease of locating later. So this is my video tutorial file, and I want to call it 01. I'm using 01 because it helps me sort things later. I'm kind of type A when it comes to file names and the sort order that the computer chooses. So if I choose 1 now, and then I have 2 later and 3 later, and then I get to 10, it's going to bump 10 in front of past 2, and I don't like that. That bothers me. So I like to use double digits whenever I can. That's up to you if you don't want to. I'm not going to judge you. So we'll click Save, and this will take a little bit of time to compile and compress and put together on my desktop. And this is what my desktop looks like right now. Here is Video Tutorial 01. It's ready to be shown as a video file, and I've got this primary and this secondary on there. So I'm going to pull iMovie back up, and now it's time to try Pass 2. I'm going to go way back to the start here, and I'm going to get rid of everything in the primary slot, and I'm going to delete the audio, because that audio is attached to my video that I just made. I'm going to go ahead and drag that into my media library. It's going to import it, and now I can treat it just like any other clip that we've already used. So this is now my primary with the sound, with the 2 images, and because it's kind of close together, I want to probably spread that out so I can do some fine tuning in here. And let's grab a third one. How about this guy? Okay, so we're going to put him in at roughly the same time, right? And now, as soon as I drag in this second video, we go back to this cutaway feature, but we're going to do picture in picture. So now I'm going to resize. I want to make sure he's aligned properly, of course. I haven't done that. Maybe I'll do that here. I'll just kind of look for it here. There's his south view. Okay, so I'm going to trim it right there, delete it, make sure that his south lines up with this girl's clap. Okay, clap. There's south. Right? It's pretty close. It's not exact right now, which bothers me some, but for this tutorial, I think that's pretty close. Let's take a look. Okay, so he needs a little adjustment. Okay, so that's really close. I need to mute his audio. I also need to adjust how he comes into view. So I'm going to go back to this. And do I want him to appear instantly? Yes, I do. It's set for 0, so I'm going to click the check mark. And now he's muted, but his video is in the right place. And at the end, there's a fade out on him. Interesting. Maybe I should go back and take a look. He's still got that 0 here, but I can change this manually by dragging this little thing over. Yeah, so we're going to make him instantly fly out at the end. This could be my next layer. Okay, so here is this boy. Now, his video only goes this far, but then there's all the rest of this. So I could put another child or another video. Here's Mr. Harloff, our band teacher. I could put him next. And this is still a secondary video, but because they're not happening at the same time, I can put another one here. Okay, you can do this multiple times. So that's why it's important to storyboard and treat each section of your video as a scene. Every scene has its own version of layers, and so you want to go through and determine what your scenes look like before you do your final passes. So once the pass is complete, once I've done all the trimming I need to do, I'm not even going to bother trying to fine-tune him. I'm just cutting him off before the end of my pre-made video. I'm ready to do pass number 2. So again, I hit the share button, I go to File, and this time when I click Next, I'm going to choose 02. See, here's 01 sitting there on the desktop waiting for me. So when I save this time, it's going to write this set of images. I hope that makes sense. Basically what you're doing is you're taking, if you want to think of the old overhead transparencies, animators do this too. You lay down your first sheet, you make your drawing. Then you lay another sheet on top of it and you add to the scene. Then you lay another transparency down, and you're just adding things in layers up on top of your original picture. That's what's going on here, but in a digital version. The great thing about this is you don't lose any quality with all these copies. Like I said, I had 20 different versions of this that I made for my video and didn't lose any of the audio quality. The video didn't get any grainier. It's not like making a photocopy of a photocopy. The digital integrity remains the same. So, on your final export, I should bring this back up. On your final export, probably a good idea to call it final, just to set it apart from everything else. Okay, so you could call it final. And then when you save it, you will know that this is the completed version. A little tip, before you make any of your recording passes, you might want to go to full screen here and watch the video from the start. This way you get a really good sense of what looks right, what looks wrong, whether the timing is off, whether the sizing is off, whatever you think. So that is how you do this crazy thing. If you would like, you may look at the document that I have put together to kind of walk through these steps. That might help you kind of keep track of things. It's a bit confusing without the video, but the video is also very long. So I think working in tandem, those two things can help you a lot. I hope that you found this to be useful and educational. If you're thinking of doing this, either you have made up your mind that it's not as bad as you thought it was, or you think, holy moly, that's way more work than I want to put in, and either way is totally fine. You have to be the judge of what's right for you. But if you try it, I wish you good luck. I'm available for questions, and I can't wait to see what you do. Thank you very much for watching and listening, and I'll see you soon.